Ascension EAP, Recovery and Resilience, Moving Through Trauma to Growth and Well-Being. Introduction to Grounding and Deep Breathing. Presented by Shelly Maxwell.
Hi, I'm Shelly Maxwell, a licensed clinical social worker with Ascension Wisconsin's Employee Assistance Program. I'm also a registered yoga instructor. And in this segment, I'll be explaining why grounding and deep breathing can be powerful components of your self-care program. A lot of times, I have clients coming in and are experiencing a lot of stress, and sometimes that stress has evolved into anxiety and depression. And the information I'm about to share with you is something my clients repeatedly say is very helpful in understanding what's going on with their physical reactions and emotional reactions to what's going on in their lives. So to start, let's talk about your body being an organism of over 30 trillion cells, very dynamic and different cells, and their basic needs. So before we talk about grounding and deep breathing, we have to have a core understanding that water is essential to our cellular functioning. We need that hydration. We need protein and minerals and vitamins for their functioning as well. We need physical activity. Exercise is critical, as well as sleep. We need time to rest. And part of that is because we have a nervous system. Our nervous system is this balance between an active state and rested state. And we're active and then we rest. And when stress comes into our life, it starts to signal to different parts of our brain that create a response that start to make our active state feel more like anxiety and our rested state more like depression. So it's like two sides to the same coin. And so we're doing this, and it feels rotten. And grounding and deep breathing are ways that start to bring balance in, as well as making sure we're getting the rest we need, the physical activity we need, the nutrition, and the hydration. So there's a part of your brain that's called the amygdala, and the amygdala is a big component with stress. The amygdala sits near the brainstem, and your optic nerves are wired directly to the amygdala. And the reason for that is your amygdala gets information from the eyes in a millisecond and is deciding what to do. I don't know if you've had that experience driving when somebody comes in front of you and you're hitting the brakes, and then the conscious part of the brain, which resides up here, is, whoa, what just happened? Because the amygdala already knew what was happening. I call the amygdala the threat detector. And it's taking information from the eyes, what it's seeing. It's taking information from the rest of the brain, like the brainstem, of what we're sensing, right? Touching, feeling, hearing, smelling. And it's deciding whether there's threat around you. Interestingly enough, we can create a stress response in our own head with memories that were painful. And even if we're being really self-critical, the amygdala is going to say threat. And it's going to trigger a response that puts us into a flight mode, fight mode, or freeze mode. And it does that by sending out adrenaline initially. It's going to get our heart pumping. It might get us a little shaky. It might get us hot or cold. And then if that stress stays there for a while, meaning more than 20 minutes, we're going to start to get cortisol in the system. And cortisol really does a doozy on our body. It inflames the arteries, it coats your neurotransmitters, and it creates this. Okay, so if you're experiencing that for more than 2 weeks, you're likely going to start to experience more anxiety, in the onset of depression, maybe. So Grounding is really powerful because it's basically like a mindfulness exercise. You are redirecting the amygdala. You're taking it away from whatever the threat information is and giving the amygdala something that's safe and secure to focus on. So it might be the floor, looking at the detailing of the flooring, and then bringing your gaze up and looking at the walls in front of you and on the sides. Might be looking up, noticing the ceiling or the sky. We can also use our body to ground. I usually use a body scan. So starting at your feet and working your way up to the crown of the head. And I'll walk you through that in the next video. But basically, we're giving that amygdala something else to focus on, and it starts to get us out of that fight, flight, or freeze response. Deep breathing is also an important component because deep breathing works with the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve helps with the parasympathetic system, the rested state of your nervous system. And to access that vagus nerve, we compress it, and we compress it between the diaphragm and the belly. That's where it resides. So a lot of times people think the deep breathing is about getting more oxygen. And yes, you will get more oxygen, because I'll explain when I'm in a few minutes why we sometimes are getting less oxygen, but it's more about compressing that vagus nerve. And when that vagus nerve gets compressed, it loves it. And it says we're good to the brain, and then the brain gives us a nice bath of endorphins. And endorphins bring relaxation. It tells the brain we don't need the cortisol, and it starts to restore the nervous system back to this nice rhythm. So with the diaphragm, it's to understand the diaphragm, think of it like a hammock, and it's this muscle that's underneath the rib cage and where the lungs rest, because the lungs are sponges. There is no muscle in your lungs. So it's the diaphragm that is breathing the lungs. Now picture this, where are the lungs? You've got this rib cage and then the collarbones. It's like a cage. So a lot of times we're doing reverse breathing, or what we call paradoxical breathing, where we're pushing the lungs up into the cage, trying to inhale, and then the lungs can't do what they need to. So diaphragmatic breathing is actually retraining yourself to breathe correctly. And what I mean by that is letting that diaphragm come down. And when it comes down, it's going to pooch out your belly, because your organs have to shift to make room for these lungs to expand, right, in your cavity. So this can be uncomfortable for a lot of women. We're taught to suck it in, and letting our belly hang out is not always appealing, but I guarantee you're going to feel so much better shifting into diaphragmatic breathing if you're not doing it already. So with diaphragmatic breathing, I want you to focus on your effort being in the exhale. Now, will you always have to focus your effort there? No, it's going to become second nature. But initially, if you're really doing the paradoxical breathing, you're going to have to be more conscious with the effort. And it's easiest to think of it like squeezing. So when you're exhaling, squeezing that air out by bringing the belly to the back of the spine. And then when you're ready to inhale, you release the effort and just let that belly naturally balloon out and relax. And then when you're ready to exhale, bring in the effort and bring that belly gently right to the back of the spine. There doesn't have to be any rough, aggressive effort. And then when you're ready to inhale, release the effort and just let that belly open up. And then exhaling again, bring the belly button to the back of the spine. Yeah. And then inhale, release. So we're getting those endorphins going. And in truth, when we're focusing on our breathing, right, that's also grounding. So Join me in the next segment. I'm going to walk you through the grounding. I'll walk you through the deep breathing, and I'm even going to do some chair yoga in another video. So I hope you'll check that out too. I'll see you in a little bit.